Okay, good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to the Virtual California African American Museum. My name is Alexandra Mitchell. I'm the manager of education and public programs at CAM. As always, we're delighted that you've chosen to spend a part of your evening with us. This evening is going to be incredible with two really special writers, and so you're in for a little bit of a treat. Quincy Troupe, author of 20 books, including 10 volumes of poetry and 3 children's books. His awards include the Patterson Award for Sustained Literary Achievement, Gwendolyn Brooks Poetry Award, a 2014 Lifetime Achievement Award from the Furious Flower, and the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History Award, which was awarded in January 2018 in Michigan. His writings have been translated into over 30 languages. 7 Stories Press will publish a new collection of Troupe's poetry titled Dunde Poems, 1966 until now in the fall of 2020, and his memoir, The Accordion Years, the following year in 2022. So still busy and still very much working and writing. A major motion picture, based on Troupe's memoir, Miles and Me, is also scheduled to go into production in the fall of this year. Currently Quincy Troupe is poetry editor of A Gathering of Tribes and contributing editor to NOC 2 online literary journals. Erin Aubry Kaplan, journalist, essayist, and author, joins us to moderate tonight's conversation. She is a contributing writer to the opinion pages of the New York Times and the LA Times, respectively, and in 2006 became the first Black regular opinion columnist in the LA Times history. She's the author of 2 books, Black Talk, Blue Thoughts, and Walking the Color Line, Dispatches from Black Journalists, and I Heart Oklahoma. In 2001, she won the PEN Award for journalism for her essay, Blue Like Me, an exploration on race and depression. She serves as book review editor for Miss Magazine. Tonight, these incredible 2 writers discuss the life and music of trumpeter Miles Davis, one of the many American men and one of music's most brilliant and influential figures, who is featured in the exhibition Men of Change, Power, Truth, and Triumph, which is at CAM. Troupe, who has collaborated with, of course, Miles on this work, and is also, collaborated with Davis on Miles, the Autobiography, and also, as formerly mentioned, Miles and Me. Of course, was also the Professor Emeritus at University California, San Diego, and former editor of Black Renaissance Noire. I invite you to engage both of these writers this evening using the question and answer feature at the bottom of your screen. And with that, I will turn the conversation over to Erin.
Okay, thank you, Alexandra. Thank you so much. One small correction, my book is actually called I Heart Obama, not Oklahoma. I've never been to Oklahoma, maybe one day. But anyway, thank you so much. And I'm really glad to be here. Really good to see you, Quincy. We were catching up a little bit before we got started. So we're just gonna have a conversation about you and Miles, but you also just what you're up to, because like Miles, you always seem to be changing, right? And going forward. And that's a great thing. So let me just start, Quincy. There has been a Miles Davis kind of renaissance, right? In the last several years, there was Don Cheadle's movie. There was a documentary back in, I think, 2019 on Miles, which you were in. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he never goes away, and also the movie that Alexandra mentioned, the movie based on your memoir is going to start production. I thought it had started already, but anyway, it will be a movie with Michael K. Williams, one of my favorite actors. So Miles is all over the place. And so let's just start by talking about, you and Miles are from the same place, St. Louis, right? Although I think he's from Alton, but you're from St. Louis. And how did you become aware of him? You're younger than he was. Yes. But you grew up knowing about him, right? And sort of maybe idolizing him from afar, but just talk a little bit about that, like how you became aware of Miles.
Sure. First of all, I grew up in St. Louis, and Miles Davis was always, after a while, when I was listening to music, I always listened to music because right. I came from a family who listened to music. And my mother listened to music and my father. And And so I just grew to love Miles Davis. I just grew to love his music. And when I found out he was from East St. Louis, across the river from me in St. Louis, and that he played in my cousin Eddie Randall's band,
Right.
because Eddie Randall told me that. Eddie Randall was my mother's cousin. And I was talking to him one day, and we were talking, and he said, "Oh yeah, you heard of Miles Davis, right?" I said, "Yeah." Eddie Randall was a big time funeral home director, so I never really thought about him as a musician, but he was a great trumpet player. And he said, "Oh yeah, Miles played in my band." I said, "He did?" I looked at him. I said, "He played in your band?" Yeah, the Blue Devils. The Blue Devils. Miles
Blue Devil.
The Blue Devils, he was like 17, 18 years old. He played in my band. I said, "What?" I could not, anyway, I just had a new respect for my cousin Eddie Randall at that point. And,
And I think Lester Young played in that Blue Devils too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, well, he had a great band. He had a great band. And I really started to appreciate it. And then I found out that he was one of the best band leaders in the whole Midwest. And I was like, wow, I didn't know nothing about that.
Right.
But anyway, I was a big fan of Miles. I also liked the way he dressed. He was also, as we used to say, clean as a broke dick dog. That was, I don't know where that saying came from, but that's what everybody used to say. Miles was clean as a broke dick dog. I said, what is a broke dick dog? What does that mean?
I think you're taking too literally, Quincy.
But I just couldn't figure out what it meant, and but everybody
you still can't.
No, I can't figure it out.
Yeah, okay.
And everybody used to say that in St. Louis. It was a St. Louis kind of thing, and they would say that about Miles. And so I really wanted to see him. I really got to the point that I was a great basketball player at that time. We were state champions. I was really good as a basketball player and all that. And so, I was like, who is this guy, And so when I finally went down to see him, my older cousin took me down to the club to see him. And he was so clean. He was so clean. I mean, so clean. All the women were like, hearts were fluttering and everything. I was like, man, and he didn't do nothing. He just stood at the bar. He and John Coltrane. He was with John Coltrane.
Yeah, okay.
Stood at the bar and he was smoking a cigarette. I didn't never smoke, but he was smoking a cigarette. He and John Coltrane, and then he played, and everybody just went crazy. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, this guy is something. I mean, he had this energy that is hard to explain.
Yeah.
So when I said I want to meet him, I want to meet him. I told my cousin who was really a guy older than me. He said, well, he don't want to meet you. I said, excuse me? He said, he don't, I'm thinking I'm an all-state basketball player.
Yeah, right.
I'm famous. What? He don't want to meet me? And so he said, no, he don't want to meet you, man. He don't want to meet you. And so don't go up to him. You'll get cursed out. I said, I'll get cursed out. And then what I saw, and I'm gonna make this short, this white couple coming from the back of the club, said, I heard him say, oh dear, there's Miles Davis standing at the bar. Let's go up and say hello to him. So he had this beautiful white woman. They go up to the bar. Miles is standing there having a drink with Coltrane. And he said, Miles. And Miles looked at him. He said, and he couldn't get it out. Miles said, fuck you, motherfucker. And he said, fuck you, motherfucker. Get out of my face and take that white bitch with you. I said, oh, I had never heard nothing like that in my whole life, I had never, ever heard anything like that. I said, what did he say? And the guy was stunned. And he said, get the fuck out of my face. And he left, the guy left. So at that point, I changed my mind about going up to meet him and saying hello.
So. What year was this, Quincy? What year roughly?
It was in the 60s.
60s, okay.
Yeah. And I said, wow, that was something, man. And from that point on, I just loved him, and I never got a chance to meet him and never got a chance to meet him. Never got a chance to meet him.
But I'm sorry, you loved what? You loved his attitude, or you loved
his attitude?
Okay.
I loved his music first.
Okay. All right.
I loved his music first. I loved his style and as clean as he was, because I was always into clothes. So I'm looking at him like, whoa. And then he had this attitude. I had never heard a black man say that to a white guy ever in my life. That was the first time I ever heard that.
Right.
And I said, man, I told my cousin, that was something, man, you know. And after that, I had this whole thing about him. And I told him that later.
Okay.
I told him that later. He was at Peacock Alley where he was.
Mm-hmm.
I told him when I got to know him, I said, remember, he said, yeah, we were talking about something. I said, you know, when I first met you, man, I first saw you. He said, what? I said, at Peacock Alley. Oh, in St. Louis. I said, yeah. He said, I said, when you cursed out that white guy, he said, oh, yeah. I remember that. I remember that. I was like, I had never heard anything like that. And he said, he just laughed and let it go.
Yeah, right. It wasn't the first time he done that, I'm sure.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, you know, Will, I just want to throw in, you describe Miles in your book as an unreconstructed black man, right?
Yes.
And that is a really interesting term. And I think what, you know, it's something that maybe many men aspire to be. And it's unreconstructed. It means in part unapologetic, right?
Yes.
There are questions about whether that guy deserved that, but I think maybe that's what you admire, this sort of very, very unapologetic, unreconstructed black man, which suggests that most of us are broken apart, deconstructed, and have to be put together. Right. But that's not what Miles was, right?
No,
anyway,
he wasn't.
So that was your first meeting, okay? And then, yeah. So you maybe you thought you were going to be an athlete, right? You know, that's what you were going to be when you grew up. You wanted to be an athlete, or were you thinking of being a writer? Because I want to know how you ended up writing. You went to no, go ahead.
No, I never thought about being a writer. Although I should say this, I was in the bookworms.
Oh, okay.
Myself, Walter Lipsy and Earlene Richardson.
Okay.
And Earlene always read the most books. I read second, and then Walter Lipsy finished third. Always. I was always a bookworm because my mother turned me on the books. Okay. And I love books because I love escaping from St. Louis because it was such a treacherous, murderous place. Wow. I could always fantasize in these books that I read, you know, being out of St. Louis, you know. And so I always read books, and I always carried a book in the back of my back pocket, covered up by a shirt so nobody could see that I had a book. And I was always
really? That wasn't cool, huh?
No, it wasn't cool because I knew I was gonna have to fight. I didn't mind fighting.
Okay.
I didn't mind fighting because I came from that kind of thing. You know, I didn't mind beating up on somebody at that time. But I didn't want to do it all the time, you know, for a book too. Because I had to do it a couple of times. Wow. And so, you know, so I was, you know, interested in books. I was interested in music. I was interested in all kinds of things. You know, my mother, I had a great mother, and my mother was a really wonderful, beautiful woman. And she always talked about music and talked about things. She always had it in the house. So I had the honor of coming up under her tutelage, and my grandmother, who was also a great lady. And then my father was a very, very, very famous black baseball player.
Yeah, I know. I was going to ask you about that. He played in the Negro Leagues, right? Or did he? Oh,
yeah. I was junior. See, I was junior. I'm Quincy Troupe Jr. But he was a great star in St. Louis, which paved the way for me, because everybody thought I was going to be, which I did become, you know, this big star as an athlete. But my dad was just, he was all state in football, all state in basketball, all state in baseball. Wow. And he was a 1930 something heavyweight Golden Glove open division champion. He knocked out 55 straight people.
That's incredible.
So he was this incredible person, you know? Yeah. And that was my dad, you know? So I came up under that kind of like, this is a heavy, you know? Right. Yeah, but I felt
You were an athlete too, and did you think you would? But you were interested in other things, and eventually, what, you became a journalist or writer, right?
yeah, but I was a better basketball player than him,
Oh.
which I used to always tell him, you know. But he was a great baseball player, great this, that, and the other. But I was a better basketball player than him, and I loved my dad. I idolized him,
Mm-hmm.
and so, you know, it's so. But I had a I had a great father image to come up under.
Yeah, right.
And he always used to tell me, you can be whatever you want to be. That's what he used
Okay.
to tell me. He used to tell me, you can be whatever you want to be. You just you just gotta have to want to be it, you know, and you got to work at it. And so I had that, and it was wonderful in a way to
Yeah.
come up with, you know.
Right. That
Yeah.
freedom to be
Yeah.
what you wanted to be. Right.
What I wanted to be.
Mhm.
And I believed it. I believed it. I really did believe it.
Right.
So that was my background. That was my background. I went to church. You know, we were all First Baptist Church. I used to have to go every Sunday because my grandmother was president of the Flower Club. And
Flower Club. Okay.
the Flower Club.
Okay.
And she used to take me every Sunday to church, which
Right.
I didn't want to do. You know, I didn't want to go, but I would go and all that. So that was my background growing up, and then we lived in the Black neighborhood, and then we moved to this neighborhood on over by on Ashland, and Ashland, to this all white high school.
Oh.
And that kind of took the, you know, I was one of 7 Black kids that went to this school, and they didn't like us. I didn't want to be there, and they didn't want me there.
Right.
They didn't want me there. So that ended up in me having to change my whole attitude. I mean, I had to beat up a lot of white boys.
Yeah, no, you used to carry a knife, right?
I did. I carried a razor. And
Ooh.
so, but I had to beat up a lot of white boys, and because they were jumping on me, I wasn't jumping on them. They were jumping on me.
Right.
And since I was not going to get whooped, I was not going to get whooped, you know.
Right.
And I knew not to cut them, you know, because if you cut them, you're going to go to jail.
Or worse.
Or worse. So I had to beat them up, you know what I mean? So that's what happened. So that was a very unpleasant experience for me going to that high school. My grades suffered. My grades suffered. It wasn't number of white people there. And you know, I was going with this white girl, and they didn't like that. She was a beautiful girl. Huh?
I said, I bet they didn't like it.
They didn't like it, but I mean, she was there, and she was there, you know, and she liked me. So that was that. And but it made me so angry to be at this school. You know, my whole attitude changed. You know.
I can see that. It reminds me of my father from New Orleans, but pretty much raised in LA. But he was one of the first Black students to go to Fremont High in 1948, 49. Anyway, it was traumatic, you know, in the same way you're describing. And I think it was a very formative experience for him. But anyway, so I can see already you have some similarities with Miles and how he developed his attitude towards white people. But let's talk about your some years later, you were at Spin, right? Magazine. You wrote about jazz, right?
Right.
You wrote about music, and you got this assignment to interview Miles.
Right. Right. Oh, you froze?
Well, talk about that. So how did that happen?
Oh yeah. So no, they asked me.
Maybe.
Yeah, they asked me. You know, it's funny. The producer of my Miles and Me movie is Rudy Langlace, and Rudy Langlace is from LA. Rudy Langlace was my editor at Spin.
Oh, okay.
And so he was my editor. So we called me in, and I had been writing for the Village Voice and all these other places. So when I went to Spin, he was the features editor.
Oh,
so
okay.
I didn't know him, you know. So he calls me and says, "What? Give me your wish list, because we want you to be a feature writer for us." And so I gave him my wish list of Prince and Miles Davis, and I gave him this whole long list. And he says, "Okay." he said, so, okay, can you think you can get to Miles? I said, yeah, I think I can get to Miles. And he said, that's your first piece.
Huh.
I want you to do a piece on Miles. So I
That,
said, okay. So I knew these people that knew Miles. And so I called them up and they set up this interview with him. He was living on Fifth Avenue at the time.
okay.
And we set up the interview with him.
And this was what year? Like what time? What year?
I can find out for you.
Approximately. It didn't have, you know.
In the 70s.
Okay.
In
Okay.
the 70s. I'm really bad with years.
That's okay. That's okay.
So I called Miles up. He was living on 79th and Fifth Avenue on the 14th floor.
And by the way, he was not really playing at this time, was he? He was.
No, he was sitting out. He had been sitting out.
He was sitting out. Okay. Uh-huh.
So I go down there. I live in Harlem. I live in the same place I've lived in for all these years. So I lived in the same place. So I go down I walked down. No, I had a Saab. I got my Saab and drove down there, parked about a block down the street from him on Fifth Avenue and I think 78th Street. And I walked up and went in his apartment right on 79th and Fifth Avenue on the 14th floor. So I go up on the elevator to the 14th floor. And there he had one apartment to a floor. So he had this whole floor.
Right.
So they let me in. He had a valet. They let me in. I go in and he's sitting up there at the table drawing.
Yeah. He
drawing.
He was really into art.
Yeah. So he's drawing.
Right.
So I had I was, like I said, I was a basketball player. The reason I stopped playing basketball because I wrecked my knee.
Oh, okay.
So I had a knee replacement and all that. So I'm standing there behind him. He has not acknowledged me at all.
Okay.
So I'm standing there behind him. He don't say sit down, nothing. So I'm like, damn. I'm standing behind him watching him draw, and he don't say nothing. So my knee starts to ache. So I'm getting very angry. I'm getting very angry because my knee is starting to hurt because he ain't told me to sit down or nothing. And I never sit down in nobody's house until he told me I can sit down.
Did you say hello to him or did you?
He didn't speak to me at all.
Oh, but did you speak to him and say something?
No.
Oh, okay.
He was drawing, so he didn't say nothing. And so I'm standing behind him. I'm starting to shift from leg to leg because my leg is hurting. I'm pissed off, boy. So finally, he turns around and looks at me and he says, sit down over there.
Okay.
So I walk around him and sit down. Now I'm really mad now. I'm really, my wife has given me something. I don't know what she's been to give me. Okay. Yeah, so she tells me to sit down over there. Yeah. And I go and sit down and he's looking at me. And he says, man, you about a funny looking motherfucker. I didn't know how to take that. I didn't know how to take that. I just didn't say nothing because I don't want to ruin the interview. Right. You know, I didn't want to lose the interview.
Right.
He said, so what you want? Ask me. So we talked. So he said, don't sit there like that. Ask me some fucking questions. Which I was ready.
Right.
I pull out these chats. I started asking him these questions. And so he starts to ask them. He starts to answer them. And I'm asking him all these questions. And he's like answering all these questions. What you want to know that for? I said,
were you asking him about his music? You're asking him about
everything.
Okay. All right.
I'm asking him about everything.
Yeah.
I'm saying like, okay, first of all, my friend, like I said, Rudy Langlace had set this up, and he had been my editor at the Village Voice, and I wrote for them. And then Rudy moved to Spin, and he's my friend. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he's my friend, and so I just wanted, to kind of write a great piece for him, because and all that. And then
plus you were curious about Miles. You always wanted to talk to him, right?
Yeah, I did. But Rudy set up this interview with Sandra Trim DaCosta, who was Miles's recording CEO of communications, person.
Okay.
And she was also my student. So that's what made it so easy, because I'm just trying to get all this out to you because I want you to know everything. Okay. So Sandra Trim DaCosta was his person at the record company.
Right.
So she was my student. So that's how that all happened so seamlessly.
Got it. Except that the interview's not going seamlessly, right? Or he's answering your questions.
Yeah, he's answering the question, but he's hostile. You know what I mean? He's hostile. He's like hostile. So I just kept asking him hard questions and all kind of questions. So I asked him one question. He looked at me and said, "What you want to know about that for?" I said, "Because I want to get everything that you want to talk about." I said, "I want to get a great interview, man. I want to get a great interview. I ain't interested in no little stupid stuff. I'm interested." So he kind of blinked and looked at me and says, "All right, man. All right, Quincy. Okay, I see." And then when I told him that I was Eddie Randall's cousin, that was my cousin, he said, "Eddie Randall was your cousin? I played in Eddie's band. I was in his band first. That's the first band I played in." Right. I said, "Yeah, I know, man. I was going to get to that." And then that's what did it. It opened it up. You know what I mean? He opened it up. "Eddie Randall was your cousin?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Damn." And then that opened it up, because he had never met. I mean, that just opened it up.
Yeah.
And he started answering every question I asked him.
Right.
And then when he answered all day. I was down there all day. I was supposed to be down there for about 2 hours, an hour or two. And I remember Sandra Trim DaCosta, who was my student, came in and said, Miles, it's been an hour and a half. It's been an hour and a half. Y'all been in here 2 hours or something. He said to her, "Well, what you want?" He said, "Well, 2 hours, it was supposed to be an hour and a half." He says, "I know it's supposed to be an hour and a half. You got something to do? Go ahead and do it." That's what he told her.
So how long were you there?
About 5 hours.
Okay.
I had to call my wife and tell her, "I'm still down here."
Oh, well, Quincy, talk about the moment where he wanted to know something about your hair, right?
Yeah.
You put his hand on your head.
Yeah, he put I hit his hand.
You hit his hand, right?
Yeah, I hit his hand. He put his hand, "How you get your hair like that?" I hit his hand. He went, what the fuck, are you crazy? What the fuck you hitting my hand for? I told him, Miles' space, Quincy's space. Miles' space, Quincy's space. Just because I'm over here to do an interview with you, don't give you no right to invade my space, man. Miles' space, I'll say it again, Quincy's space, okay? Yeah. He started laughing, he started laughing. He said, "No, I know you fucking crazy." That's what he said. So then he says, I said, "Look, man, can I use your phone? I got to call my wife until I'm still here." "Oh, yeah." I said, "Oh, yeah, call her." So I called Margaret, my wife, and I said, "Margaret, I'm still down here." She said, "You still down there?" I said, "Yeah, I'm still down here." She says, "You still talking to Miles?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Can I say hello to him?" So I said, "Miles, my wife wants to say hello to you." He says, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, my wife wants to say hello to you." He said, "Okay." So I give him the phone, and she said something, and she started calling him Mr. Davis. And he said, "Call me Miles. Call me Miles." Then she said, "How come you with this funny looking motherfucker?" Shit. That's what he said. That was too funny. You know what I mean? That was too funny. So, when I said, when Sandra Trim came in and told her it's been over an hour and a half, he told her, "Forget about it. Let's go." So that's how that was, the first interview.
Right.
Just went
and that became, of course, later the book, right? Well, I'm going to ask you a question. At that point, why do you think Miles agreed to an interview? I mean, he was very, very famous, even though he was in his silent period, I guess. Why did he agree to an interview? Was he, I mean, even though he was hostile. Yeah.
Because I told you, my ex-student, Sandra Trim DaCosta, told him that she was my student and I was a great professor. And then he wanted to interview me, and he's from St. Louis,
Right.
and I was from St. Louis.
Sure.
And
he had that. Yeah, you had that connection. I'm just mean like in his career, he was struggling, right? I mean, he was. I don't know if he was doing a lot of interviews back then.
He wasn't doing none.
None. So I guess he just decided it was time to talk, huh?
Yeah. So he did.
You were the guy. You were the guy.
I was the guy. So then he says, when I was getting ready to go, he says, "Hey man, if you want to do another one, give me a call." He gave me his telephone number. Okay. He gave me his telephone number. He said, "This is my telephone number by my bed. Don't give it to nobody, motherfucker." I said to him, this cracked him up. I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "I'm gonna go down Fifth Avenue and say, yo, anybody want Miles Davis's telephone number?" I started waving, and I'm gonna wave it out there. He said, "Get the fuck out of here." He told me, "You crazy," he told me. And but I don't think I know nobody had ever talked to him like that.
Right. I was
straight up, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe not for a long time.
Nobody had ever talked to him like that.
Wow.
No, nothing but his friends, you know. Right. So I came back down there. We talked another 5 hours.
Wow.
And so that was just supposed to be a 1-part piece. It turned into a 2-part piece. I mean, a huge piece.
Huge piece, yeah.
Over 2 Spin magazines. Yeah, 2. And we were tight then. I mean, he would call me up on the phone. He'd call me up on the phone. He gave my number. He called me up and said, "Quincy, what you doing, man?" "Huh? Miles, what you doing?" He said, What you doing? You want to go get something to eat?" I said, "Yeah, where you want to meet me at so-and-so." So that's what happened. And I'd go down there, we'd meet, and we'd eat, and then we'd talk, and I just thought it was like that. You know, it was like, we were like, I mean, that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. So this book, this incredible book you did is so, I mean, just talk about how that whole process went. Like, it's amazing. Miles' memory is amazing. And there's so much, there's so many details, so many dramatic moments, etc. So just talk about what the process was like of just talking to him and, you know, getting the story from him. And at one point you just kind of stepped out of it and you let him tell it, you know.
Right, I did.
Because, you know, it just seemed like that was the way it should go. But did, you know, just talk about that experience of you know, just taking all this down. Anything surprise you? I mean, what did you learn about him? I know you learned a lot about him, a lot more, but maybe, you know, what stands out in that process?
Well, he was just totally honest. What I found out that Miles Davis was totally honest. And I told him at that point, we started talking, I said, I'm gonna carry my my tape recorder. You know, I had just a small one. I'm gonna carry my tape recorder wherever we go. You know, I'll just record you whenever I think. He said, "Yeah, that's cool. That's cool." And so, and that's what used to happen. And we'd be riding around. We riding around his car. We riding around. You know, he had a Maserati, and then he had a Ferrari. We riding around in their cars. And so I just whip out the tape recorder and start recording him. He said, "Oh, motherfucker, you wanna talk to me?" He said, "We got in the country, man." I said, "Let's talk, goddammit." "Okay, motherfucker." She said, "Okay, Quincy. Okay, Quincy." And then he would start talking. And I'd ask him all his questions about everything. What did he like about the road? What did he like about the cars? You know, what do you like about the cars and everything, you know, just everything. Anything came to my mind, I talked to him. He talked to my wife, and you know, eventually I interviewed 90 people.
Wow.
Who knew him. I interviewed all these people. So he said, he would say things like, "How'd you know that?" I said, "So-and-so told me." "Oh, that motherfucker told you that?" I said, "Yeah." "Sonny Rollins told me that." oh, Sonny told you that? I forgot about that. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Uh-huh.
That's true. And that's where it all came together because, I interviewed everybody that he knew.
Yeah.
And so after a while,
That's a lot of people.
oh yeah, a lot of people that I could think of. And they all start talking to him and he told them to open up to me,
Mhm.
he did that. And so it was all the people in East St. Louis and um, um, I decided after a while after I got all this stuff, to tell his story in his own voice
Yeah.
rather than my voice. Like, in other words, Miles went down to the corner
Yeah.
in 1954, and he would say, I went down to the corner to get some this. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, why do you? Yeah, you felt it was important that he speak in his voice.
I thought it was important that he speak in his voice.
Did that kind of just develop? Like, did you start out thinking you was going to be a third person kind of narrative, or and then you change your mind at some point that it was best that he talk?
Yeah, I felt that it was important that he talked. No, I just felt that it was important that he talked because Miles had an authentic voice. He
Yeah.
had a really great storytelling voice. He didn't know that, but he had a great storytelling voice, and I loved the way he told the stories, and he was really good at it. So I mean, he was really good at it. So I got all these tapes of him talking, just talking
Yeah.
about everything, and then I thought it was my job to edit and to give pace to his voice in that book, the
Kind
Miles
of
the
shape it,
Autobiography.
kind of just shape it.
Yeah, like I knew uh, the first line in the book is listen.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen. And I knew that was going to be, after a while, that was going to be the first thing the reader heard. Listen,
Listen. Hmm.
because that first is, as a musician, that's what he wanted you to do, listen to his music.
Right.
And then the second thing is listen to his voice, listen.
Yeah.
Let me see. I got the book here. He says,
Yeah. Well, he
hold on.
always said, he says many times in the book that the music speaks for itself, and that's seemed to be his philosophy.
Right.
Right.
No, he said, I love this line. He says, listen, the greatest feeling I ever had in my life with my clothes on was when I first heard Diz and Bird together in St. Louis, Missouri back in 1944. I was 18 years old and had just graduated from Lincoln High School. It was just across the Mississippi River in East St. Louis, So I knew right away that was going to be the beginning in the prologue of this book.
Right.
Because
Right.
it set it up for me, it's just set it up. It just set it up,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is an amazing storytelling voice. Some people had some issues with the profanity, but that was Miles. That's the way he talked. But I'm curious, he comes off as so, he's very confident. He says this himself about himself a lot. And, you know, but were there points where you felt like underneath that sort of unreconstructed image he had, that there was some vulnerability or some uncertainty, or in other words, did you see anything that maybe we couldn't see reading the book? Because he's very honest, like you say, very honest. And there's some things, I mean, sometimes I sense some regret he has, but he just moves on. He doesn't dwell on stuff. But I'm curious to know, did you sense some other things underneath the not the exterior, because that's who he was, but underneath his persona?
Well, he told me guilt and regret is useless.
Hmm.
He said, because you did it.
Yeah.
You did it. That's what you did. So now you're gonna feel regret and guilt later. He says, it doesn't make any sense. He said, you did it because you did it because you wanted to do it, and you did it because you felt at that time that you had to do it. And it's not that you think it's right all the time, but he said regret. He said regret and guilt is a useless emotion.
Hmm.
He said,
Yeah.
for him it was. I'm not going to say that it is for
Okay.
everybody else, but for him, he thought that was it was a useless emotion. He said, like when he used to fire people, he'd fire them. You know what I mean? They
Right.
just be fired. You know, that was it. And like, I mean, he might like them. He might, but he had a reason for
I
firing them.
understand.
He didn't fire them out of.
Yeah,
He didn't,
yeah. That I understand. I'm thinking, you know, the incidents with Frances, his wife, you know, the violence there, you know, I know he didn't think that was right, but he doesn't dwell on it. He doesn't, you know, he doesn't express regret, but I'm sure there was some about those things like that.
oh yeah, but he didn't. I knew he felt, because you know he loved Francis. Like really did love Francis. Francis was the love of his life,
Mm-hmm.
and he admitted that. He admitted that to me, and that Francis. He said he shouldn't have ever broke up with Francis.
Mm.
Like he said, he should have never gone with Cecily Tyson. He should never marry Cecily.
Oh.
He said she was his friend. She wanted to get married. He didn't want. He wanted her to be his friend because they were tight. He loved her as an artist. He loved her as a friend. But she wanted to marry him. She
Okay.
wanted to get married. And he said he broke down and got weak and married her.
Okay.
And he said he didn't want to do that because he said ruin the friendship. He said
Yeah.
because they were just real tight. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Two artists, two people that, you know, went through, two very dark people who went through a lot of stuff together and knew a lot of stuff together.
Sure.
And they were friends too. But he said she wanted to get married so bad. And he said he said he admitted to me that he was weak.
Okay.
He said he got weak and married her. He said, I'll never do that again. I'll never ever do that again, you know?
Right. It's hard to imagine that someone could make him do something he didn't want to do, but that's he could have done worse.
He could have done worse. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But he just said he didn't want to marry her, you know?
Okay, I hear you. I hear you.
He just wanted to be her friend, you know?
Well, yeah, it's good to be friends, and you know, one thing about marriage is it's you do have to be friends. So he had that part right. He just didn't want to marry her. Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk about his music. I mean, Miles went through so many phases. He kept evolving. There was, you know, 40s and the 50s and 60s, and then the 70s. He kind of hit a roadblock. But for you, I mean, what is your I guess favorite style of Miles? Like what hits you the most? What to you embodies Miles the most in terms of his music?
I don't, you know, see, I don't have that problem because of the fact I love a lot of periods of Miles Davis,
Okay.
all the way up to the end, because he was always himself, you know, and he was always himself, and I love that about him, that he had the courage to keep moving. He had the courage to keep moving. I remember I took down to him Kassav, the great West Indian band, you know, because my wife and I used to go down to Guadalupe all the time. And so we heard Kassav and all that West Indian music down there, you know, and I loved it. I just fell in love with Kassav and that West Indian music, Zouk. And so when I came back, I turned him on to Kassav. I turned him on the Zouk, and he just loved it. You know, he just boom right away. And then he was so funny. We have this interview we did at the Studio Museum of Harlem.
Yeah.
And it's he and I in front of this live audience. It's wonderful. If you ever get a chance, see it.
Okay.
And we sitting there talking, he and I. And so I say to him, you have to see his face though. I say, Miles, can you talk about Kassav and Zouk? He said, okay, Chris, I know. Okay. He got a little vulnerable. He said, okay, Quincy. what Quincy wants you to want me to say is that he introduced me to Zouk and Kassab. I said, no, that's not what it is. Yo, no. And he started talking about it. He started talking about the music, but he had to let everybody know that, okay, Quincy, okay, you want to tell everybody you influenced me by introducing me, which is true.
Yeah, right. Right.
You know, but it was like he didn't want to say that in front of these people, and but he said it, you know, and he talked about it. He talked about how much he loved that music, Zouk, and why he loved it, why he loved that band, and his band was like that, a little bit like that going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was funny, you know, it was just funny to see him say, "Okay, Chris, okay." You know,
all right,
what Quincy wanted me to do is talk about Zouk because he introduced me to them. you know, it was funny, you know. But Miles was a wonderful person in a lot of ways. He was shy. See, he was very,
shy?
very shy, and a lot of people have to understand that Miles Davis was a very shy person.
Yeah, he actually says that in his in the autobiography. He says that.
Yeah, he's very shy, and sometimes you know, because he was so right all the time, he just couldn't handle it. You know, sometimes he really, you know, but he was a wonderful person. I mean, I thought very shy, very what can I say? Yeah, I'll leave it at that. If I'll come up with another word, but he was generous too. He was a very generous spirit. You know, if he wanted you to do something, he'd say, "I want you to go to France." He'd put out the money, pay for the hotel.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. I sense that comes out of his experience. You know, when he first started playing, he played with so many bands and so many people. They all help each other. You know, the jazz artists did that. Helped each other out, paid each other's bills or whatever. You know, that's the sense I get. Well, it's funny because Miles, in his later years was thought of as this jazz elder, of course. And how did he feel about that? I mean, as someone who was evolving, changing, didn't like to look back, right? How did he take that this idea that he was, an elder statesman of jazz?
No, he never talked about it.
Never, he didn't really accept that, huh?
No. That wasn't something that he dealt with. He didn't talk about it.
Okay.
I mean, like he didn't talk about it. I mean, it wasn't something that he thought about. It was like I'll tell you one thing. He always looked up to Diz.
Yeah.
He always loved and respected Dizzy Gillespie. And every time I'd see them together, it was nothing but respect. Even though he was much more famous than Diz. But he never said anything negative about Dizzy Gillespie. You know, he's the one thing he did say is that he smiled too much. He did stop smiling so much. Stop smiling so much, shit.
Yeah, I know. He didn't like that aspect. He didn't like the entertaining, what do you call the clowning?
Yeah, the clowning. And he always loved Max Rhodes. He always loved that. All them old guys that he played with, he really, really, really still loved them. You know.
Even Bird.
Bird too. Oh yeah, he loved Bird. You know.
I know,
but yeah, he just loved Bird. But he thought that like, for example, he thought that when Marsalis got too big for his britches, you know.
Oh, okay.
He told me one time, he gonna find out shit. He said, let that motherfucker miss one note. Let him miss one note. He said they gonna be down on him like, he said them critics gonna be down on him, man. And they were. They were, but
that's interesting because Wynton Marsalis, he does classical, music as well as jazz, and Miles said that he liked classical, but he thought it was kind of robotic and thought that
he did. He said
playing
that.
something on the page, but ultimately was not who he was. Playing something on the page, just playing something reading something. You had to innovate. You had to go off book, right, to be great. So he did that his whole life. He did that musically his whole life.
Oh yeah, he was always into changing. I mean, he wasn't into changing just to
Yeah.
change. I mean, he says if
Right.
if you live, you have to change. You know, if you're living in the world, you have to do something different. Like he says, like you change clothes all the time. You know,
Right.
he said, you know, like you change clothes, or different shoes, or whatever, different hairdos. You
Right.
know, yeah. So you know, that was him. I mean, that was him, and I respected that with
Yeah.
him. Yeah.
And you got, I mean, this is an obvious thing to say now, but you guys had a lot of similarities just in your personalities. You seem to mesh. Did you, and you grew closer over time, right? Did you ever, fall out with him? I can't imagine you didn't.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
He, I'll tell you this one funny story.
All right, just one.
He got mad with me about something. I was at his apartment, and he started. I mean, he got mad because I said something to him. Oh, I think oh, that's what it was. He said, I asked him. I said, well, where you packing your bags? Where are you going? Where are you going? He said he was going to what's the jazz festival? Montreux.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I said, I thought you said you didn't want to go, weren't gonna ever go to Montreux again, man. You know, well, you wouldn't ever go to Montreux again, because they were like this and that and the other.
Mm-hmm.
He said, what the fuck you know about what you know about anything? You don't know nothing about Montreux. You don't know nothing about it. I said, I know you said that, man. I know you said that. I know you said that you weren't gonna go there, that it was just bullshit. And he said, oh yeah, motherfucker. He said, man, I'll hit you upside your motherfucking head or something, like I hit you up in your mouth or something. I laughed at him, man. I said, you looked at yourself recently, Miles? He said, I said, you looked at yourself recently, man? You 5'7", 5'8", and weigh 150 pounds. I'm just 6'2.5", and I weigh 215. I will hurt you. I don't take no ass woman now. Don't hit me, man. Don't think you're gonna hit me, man, and get away with it. I'll break your fucking jaw, and you'll never play again. He grabbed his mouth. Looked at me like, you hit me in my mouth. I said, you damn, if you hit me, I'm going, yeah, that's what's gonna happen. And
wow.
He was like, shit, and
but you never hit him, right?
But I was serious.
You
No,
guys,
no.
Although Miles was a boxer, right? He did train.
Yeah, but I don't care. But he's still 5'6".
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because in his story he says, he was rumored to have gotten in fights with bigger guys, like maybe I don't know, Charlie Mingus or somebody. And he would say, that's ridiculous. He's so big. I can't fight him. Like he kind of knew what his limits were. Right.
That's right. He knew when I told him that too. Mm-hmm. And he put me out of his house though. That's the only time he put me out of his house. Get out, motherfucker.
Oh,
so I started backing up. I didn't want to go with my back to him because I thought he might hit me in the back of my head, and then I would really have to hurt him. You know what I mean? So I backed out of his house. So I backed up out. Get the fuck out, get out. And so I got out. I left. I said, okay, man, I left. And Joe Gelbard, who was his last girlfriend, she called me up and said, Miles is sorry about what he did. He's sorry.
I'm sorry, but he never said he was sorry.
He didn't tell me that though.
Oh, okay.
He told her. He said that he told her that he shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he told her, tell him to call me up and come on back down. And I called him up and he acted like it didn't happen.
Yeah, but he did that a lot, right? He never.
No, he didn't do it a lot to me.
Right.
He didn't do it a lot to me. He didn't.
Yeah.
He might have done it to other people, but he didn't do it to me.
Yeah, because if you apologize, it means you have regrets, and he didn't have any. So
No,
he couldn't do that, right?
no,
Right.
he didn't. Like when he'd see Margaret, he go, "Hey, Margaret, what you doing with this motherfucker?" Some shit like that. I mean, he was funny. You know what I mean? He was just funny. He was hilarious.
Yeah, sounds
But
right.
but that was his sense of humor.
Yeah, but sometimes he was dead serious about the guy the story you told about him fronting off the white guy who
Oh yeah, yeah. He
him.
was serious about that.
He wasn't kidding, right?
No,
Okay.
no.
Well, we'll just kind of close on this note, Quincy. Miles was shy, but he also, I think it sounds like his, that response he had to that white man was he was self-protective, right? He was, like putting up his fists in a way. Would you say that was accurate about him? That he was, you know, he was
Which white guy? I just want to be sure.
the story you told about the white guy approached him, asking just in the Peacock Alley. That
Oh
story.
yeah.
But that's just one example. But when he would just front people off and say, "Get out of my face," and he was
Oh no, he
serious.
meant it.
Was
No, he meant it.
I know, but do you think that was part of his being shy, protecting himself in some way?
Well, I think so. I think that he did not want anybody to get up in his stuff. He didn't want anybody to disrespect him. He knew. I mean, he was always aware of being a black man,
A confident black
a
man.
confident black man, coming from a very wealthy family.
Right.
You got to
Right.
keep that in mind. His
Yeah.
father was very second richest black man in the state of Illinois.
Right.
And they really were respected. And so he was always respected all of his life. And
Right.
so he wasn't playing no games with some people.
Right.
You can't get up in my face and can't do this. You can't do this.
Right.
And so he was dead serious about that. And it would be, if it was a black person, he'd have been dead serious about it too.
Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
He didn't allow you to invade his space.
As you told him, you
Yeah.
can't invade my space either. So he
No,
understood
you
that.
can't invade my space. You
He
can't.
understood that.
That's
Okay.
right.
Well, on
Yep.
that note, thank you, Quincy. We're gonna take some questions because it's right at 6.
Okay.
And we got some people. We got some. And hang on a second. Someone says, well, you kind of addressed this already, but let's see. Did Miles ever comment on receiving the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 1990?
No. I mean,
No?
he said he knew he got it. He was happy to get it.
Mhm.
But Miles wasn't the kind of person that bragged about getting awards.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't the kind of person that bragged about it. I mean, like he didn't never say anything like, well, they should have done it a long time ago.
He didn't look for awards. Did he talk about did he felt he should have been recognized more? Because he did talk about the lack of recognition, maybe not for him, but for other, like jazz artists, black jazz artists. But did he not put much stock in awards?
No, he didn't put much stock in awards.
Oh, okay.
Miles kept all those trophies that he got, and he had a lot of them, in a closet.
In a closet. Okay.
Yeah, you didn't never see him.
Huh.
You didn't never see him in his apartment.
Mm-hmm.
You never saw him out. You walk in there, you didn't never see the Grammys and none of these kind of things.
No.
Never. None of it. No, you didn't.
He just didn't want. That was why. That was just something too much in the past, or was it too self-congratulatory? Because
no, he wasn't playing music to get awards.
Mm-hmm.
See, this
Right.
is what it was. Music. Miles was playing music because he loved music. He didn't play music to get awards.
Mm-hmm.
And if they gave him some awards, then he was happy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
He used to say, tell me he didn't want to be a museum piece on the glass.
Okay.
He said, like, he showed me. We went into a museum.
Mm-hmm.
And we were walking through the museum, and he showed me this mummy. See that, Quincy? Look at that. See that mummy there on the glass? I don't never want to be a museum piece on the glass.
Mm.
I don't want that. I want to be living. I want mine alive. I'll never forget that here. Alive. I want to play live. I don't want to be no museum piece. I don't want to be no museum piece on the glass like that. I was like, whoa.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's where he was.
Yeah.
He was a very honest person in a lot of ways, which used to piss a lot of people off. You know, he pissed a lot of people off because he tell them you can't play.
Yeah, I know. I know. Wasn't personal, right?
No, it wasn't personal. He might like you, but you know, you just can't, you know, hey, I ain't got time for that. You know, like I brought some people. I brought a couple of, you know, I ain't gonna name no names. I had he was looking for a great saxophone player, and he was looking for a great saxophone player. So I know all these musicians. So I went to him and told him about these musicians, and I took some of their records and gave them to him. He never said nothing. He never said nothing. He never said nothing about them. And some of the people would ask me, Miles ever say something? Miles ever say something about my record? I said, no, he didn't say nothing about it. Oh, I said, so I asked him, I said, did you like the records? No, I didn't like what they was doing.
Yeah.
And that was it. You know,
well, sometimes he felt that way about his own records. Like he didn't seem to think too much of, you know, Sketches of Spain. That was my father's favorite record, you know, Sketches of Spain. I grew up hearing that. But Miles, after he made, said it was hard to make, and then he moved on to something else and didn't really even listen to it until it came out. But he had already moved on to some. He said his head was somewhere else, you know.
Yeah, he said somebody said to him one day, I was with him, and the guy said, "Oh man, hey Miles, you know, we were on the street," and he said, the guy, "Hey Miles Davis," he said, "Hey, what's happening?" The guy said, "Man, you know, I come to your concerts, man. You think you can play kind of blue next time?" No.
No, just no.
No.
You know, that leads to the next question, which is kind of a paradox, but someone wants to know, what do you think makes Miles's music, even though it kept changing, what makes it so timeless? What is quality, you know, even though all music, you know, went through changes, what was about him or his playing, his approach that is so timeless, and that it, you know, why does it endure?
First, I think this is my own opinion. I think Miles was a genius trumpet player, just a genius musician, and his playing was always timeless, no matter what it was. And it was timeless and beautiful and loved and respected all over the world. It wasn't just here. I mean, that you go to Europe, like, my wife and I have been to Europe, all over Europe, and people love Miles Davis. They just like, when they find out that I wrote the books on Miles Davis, they freak out. You know what I mean? They want to know all about him. You know, what did he do? What was he like? So I always tell people Miles Davis was he was a genius. He was absolutely I'll say it like this. He was absolutely musical genius. I'm not going to say about everything else, but as a musician, he listened to a lot of music. He listened to all kinds of music. He knew about all kinds of music from all over the world, like Spain and just all over the world. He listened to all that music.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons I think it is timeless, because you can recognize world music in Miles Davis's music. You know what I mean? Sure. Wherever you go, you can recognize there's some elements in it, Right. And it's not many people that have that gift. Like I think Pablo Neruda as a poet had that gift. Garcia Lorca had that gift, and they just timeless, fabulously great poets.
Right.
You know, and you know,
Yeah.
huh?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, they're just timeless, you know, and
Yeah.
it's not so much political. It's the human. Miles Davis had a very human voice in his trumpet, in his music. It was human. It was like a human cry almost,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
human. And those poets had that humanity in their work. And I know I'm always striving for that.
Yeah. Well,
You-
that's great. That leads to my next question or question from a participant. You want to know, want to hear you talk about the connections between poetry and jazz music. You actually did answer, start to answer that. But can you talk a little bit more about your own kind of connection between poetry and writing and jazz, and maybe specifically Miles's music?
Well, you know, Miles had a big impact on me,
Mm.
you know, as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a musician, but as
Right.
an artist and as an artist and as a musician,
Mm-hmm.
he had a great impact on me as a poet
Mm-hmm.
in trying to write poetry that has that same kind of humanistic impact.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That can be understood, that can be translated into other languages and still have resonance in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Because here I'm talking about words. I'm using words. Miles was using notes, but words are like notes. You have to think about it like that in a sentence.
Right.
Words are like
yeah.
notes, a jazz note and a phrase.
Right.
It's the
I
same
know.
thing. You know, it's the same kind of thing. And so it's not, see, I think that a lot of Black poets think that they have to be political and write about white people, you know, and write about what white people have done to us and this, that, and the other. You know, look, I'm not interested in it. I'm just not interested in that. You know, the whole idea of using sound and rhythm and beats and cadences is the same thing musicians use.
Right.
You see, it's the same thing, but you use it in your voice. The voice is an instrument.
Mm-hmm.
See, the poetic voice is an instrument.
Right.
It is.
Right.
It just is, and that's the way you use it. You use it like that. It's not so much to write about white people. I'm not interested in writing about white people all the time. I mean, I write about them. You know, I'm not. It's not that
if they interest you, you can write about them.
it's something they do that they did. I don't hate all white people.
Right.
See, I'm not walking around disliking all white people because I come from a place, and I hate to say it like this. If if a white person does something to me and he does something that makes me so mad, I'll smack him. Then you will get that out the way right quick, you know, but I'm not going to be walking around thinking about what he did to me all day. You know, I'm just not, you know, and Miles is the same way. See, that's why we're a lot of alike like that. I'm not going to be walking around thinking about this white boy did this. No. What did you do? What did you say? Did you say, you said that?
Well, okay. Someone had a very interesting question, which is about Miles's desire maybe to be a pop phenomenon. I mean, he says in his story, he points out, hey, I'm not against making money or being popular. You know, he does his thing, and he did his thing, but he also was not interested in being a, having a limited audience or being fringe but the question is, did Miles have any desire to be like a Prince, or I mean not like Prince, but like a star? I mean, he already was a star in his time.
He's a star.
But did he want to continue being that, maybe, is the question.
Oh, no,
because here's the thing, because Quincy, because jazz was the Black pop music of his time, but then it changed. Then you got R&B, and then you have hip hop, and I mean, Miles liked everything, but did he want to be at the forefront of all this? I mean,
he didn't think about it.
He didn't think about it. Okay.
No, he didn't think about it. You know, he didn't think about it. He didn't think about being in the forefront. He was in the forefront. It wasn't something he had to think about. You know, he was, when he would walk in a place, everybody would stop. I
Okay.
swear. I've been with him. I've been with
there.
I've been with him. And I want to read this one poem to you, and just to end this for us.
Okay.
It's
All right.
not it's different.
Okay.
It's called Sonic Fireflies.
Go ahead.
The beauty of jazz and blues voices, syncopation of syllables flowing, free form through improvising sentences, sluicing, embracing, metaphors glowing, eyes in the dark, or words imitating fireflies, pulsating bright in a black sky, or gleaming eyes of a prowling Black Panther, suddenly clicking on bright as flashlight beams, under moon rays, probing hidden places, isolated, mysterious somewhere, deep in a buzzing, alive countryside.
All right. That says a lot. That's beautiful. Thank you. Wow.
Well, I just wanted your audience to hear. This is my most recent poem.
Okay.
So,
Oh, your most recent, like the
Yes.
wow.
Yes, but I've been writing it all day, so that's why I wanted to read it.
Okay. Well, thank you for debuting it with us here at the camp. We got time for one more question. I think someone says, my first concert was Hendrix at 16, and he knew Miles and Hendrix hung out together. What was Miles's view of Jimi Hendrix?
Miles loved Jimi Hendrix.
Loved Jimi Hendrix? Okay.
Yeah, but and they wanted to play together. But this is what Miles told me. He said they couldn't get it together because Jimi was so. He said Jimi was a genius, but he just could not get it together. He couldn't get it
Seems to be the
together.
curse of geniuses.
Huh?
Seems to be the curse of geniuses.
Yeah, but Miles could get it together.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
yeah. So he would always call. He used to tell me, he called Jimmy, when we gonna do this?
Were they gonna do a performance or a record or
both?
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow, that would have been something.
And he said, Jimmy said, yeah, Miles, I'm getting it together. He said, get it together, brother. Don't try to get it together. Get it together.
Jimi Hendrix died so young, you know.
He died young, see. And the same thing with Prince. They used to play together, him and Prince.
Ah.
Uh-huh.
I didn't quite know that. Wow.
Well, he loved Prince. He loved Prince.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. And related to that question, someone else asked, wanted to know more about Miles' relationship with John Coltrane.
He loved Train. He really loved John Coltrane.
Okay.
But then at the same time, Train wanted to have his own band.
Yeah, right.
And so Miles couldn't stand in the way of that, because Train wanted to have his own band. Mm-hmm. And that was that, but as much as he loved Train, he had to let him go.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he understood that because he did it many times himself.
Yeah, he understood it. Yeah. I mean, that Miles didn't stand in the way of nobody.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He didn't stand in their way. He just didn't stand in their way. Like Wayne Shorter was always trying to get away. So Wayne Shorter was leading Miles he and Herbie Hancock were the ones that were leading Miles.
Uh-huh.
Miles told me that.
Right. He said, oh, really?
Yeah, he told me that he'd be listening to Wayne and Herbie. I mean, they always were coming in with new stuff.
Uh-huh.
In the band they had. Mm-hmm. And so they always had new stuff.
Yeah.
And Wayne was always writing new stuff, and so was Herbie.
Right.
And he was just like, he said they was the leader of the band of his last band.
They were right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, one more. I think we have time for one more.
Right.
someone wants to know, did Miles ever talk more to you about the incident at Birdland, the clubbing by the police that he got
Beat up.
puffed up, beat up. And now that was I know that was he himself says that was a kind of an inflection point, something that changed his mind about a lot of things. But it's in the book, but can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, well, see, he went there. What was her name? What was her woman's name? She was one of his friends. They weren't lovers.
A white woman.
The white woman. They weren't lovers. They were not lovers. They were friends. And he goes outside with her, and I think they both went outside to have a smoke. That's when he smoked. He went out to have a smoke with her, but the cops saw them and thought that they were lovers, which they weren't. They were just friends. They never were lovers.
Even if they were.
But but they weren't.
They weren't. Yeah.
No, they weren't. And he told Miles and her to move along. Move along. So right. Miles said, "What do you mean move along?" He says, "I'm out here taking a break from playing." He said, "I said move along." He says, "You see that name up there on that marquee? That's me, Miles Davis. I'm taking a break." The guy told him he didn't give a fuck. He told him to move. Right. And he got mad. The cop got mad because he wouldn't move. He said, "No, you move."
I know, right.
And the guy hit him over the head.
Yeah, no. And that I think shocked him in a way, didn't it?
Oh yeah, but he was just mad,
Right.
Because the guy hit him over the head. He was like, "What the what is this?" And and that was crazy.
So that surprised him, even knowing what he knew about racism in general, etc. That took him aback, that whole incident.
Yeah, but it took him aback. But see, Miles Davis was not he's one of those guys that weren't afraid, and he didn't back up either. So this I'm playing here. I got a right to be here, and forget about you. You can't tell me shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he goes, he's the police. He said, "I don't care if you're the police." I don't care if you're the police, man.
Well, that is being a totally unreconstructed black man right there.
That's right.
And that he could have ended up dead. But
yeah, but he didn't care about that.
I know. Well, that's a lot of courage because
he was a person of courage.
Yeah. Maybe crazy even. You going, but
no, he wasn't crazy.
Crazy brave. How's that?
Yeah, brave.
Crazy brave.
Yeah, he was. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't have thought that. Here's a guy who was a rich guy. His family is rich, totally middle class, bourgeois, upper class, and he's like, "Fuck you." In other words, his whole attitude was, "Punk, you work for me."
Yeah,
you work for me. That's what his attitude was.
I'll just end with one last comment. You reminded me of something he says in the book. He said, "Hey," he said something like, "I'm an American and I'm just trying to get what's coming to me." Right. That was his general view of things. I'm not going to integrate or soften my edges or tone myself down. I'm going to be as American as everybody else. And I thought that was a great way to explain himself, to kind of characterize himself.
Well, it's all about communication.
Right.
It's all about communication, Erin.
Yeah.
Some people don't hear you.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear you. It's like right now, while we're sitting here right now.
Yeah.
The Ku Klux Klan and all these white people doing all this crazy stuff, blowing, tearing down that place. They don't want to hear nothing. But we supposed to say, "Oh well, that's okay." No, it's not okay.
Let's be quiet. Right?
Yeah, let's be quiet. No, that's not okay.
No, it's not okay.
It's not okay. They got to go to jail.
Yeah, right. That's true. That's true.
They got to go to jail.
I agree with you. I'm with you. But I think for a lot of Black folks are not expecting to be heard. And so what that does, what you do is you don't speak. And so Miles Davis reminds us that, nope, that's not the way to go.
That's not the way to go.
Not the way to go.
No.
Right. I see Alexandra is like hovering. Hi.
Hi there. Thank you both. One of our attendees, our virtual attendees, has noted in the chat that this has been such a wonderful hour and a half long conversation, and sends a thank you from Thailand. So I wanted to share
I saw that. Thank you so
Yes.
much. Yeah.
We have a incredible audience with us this evening. But Erin, thank you to you for such a masterful interview. Of course, Quincy.
Thank you, Quincy, for your, I just got out of his way.
The brilliant of your craft and creativity, Quincy, is unmatched and unparalleled. So we deeply appreciate your time and the impromptu reading. What a treat for all of us in our audience. Can't wait to hear more, read more, and see more. Of course, looking forward to what comes out with the film as it goes into production. We'll be keeping an eye out for that. Of course, please do buy all of Quincy and Erin's books and their works and follow their writing. And thank you all for joining us. Thank you both again. Everybody be safe, be well, be blessed. And we look forward to having you back at a later time. Everybody have a great evening.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. See you.